morning and welcome to the Standing Policy Committee on Property and Development for this Friday, July 4th of 2025. My name is Councillor Evan Duck. I'm the chairperson of this committee. This morning I will be joined shortly by Councillor Wyatt, and on behalf of Mayor Gillingham, ex officio Deputy Mayor Mr. Marcus Chambers is here. Thank you very much, Mr. Chambers, for joining us. Much appreciated. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting?
So moved.
Very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. I'll work through any other business before moving into delegations.
No. But there has been a request from Councillor Gilroy to be heard for a suspension of the rules to be heard with respect to item, apologies, I think it's item 20.
So moved.
Oh, and sorry, we'll need a suspension of the rules for the agenda minutes as well.
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor.
So that is for the delegation and the addendum items moved by Councillor Chambers. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. All right, Councillor Gilroy, welcome. And you're muted there.
Did you start the meeting?
Yes, good morning, Councillor. We were just going to hear from Councillor Gilroy and then we'll get into it.
If you can suspend the rules, there's a new business.
Okay.
I'd like to speak to it, but I'm in my committee. So,
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Have you guys?
Do you want us to text you?
yeah,
Okay.
That'd be great. Thank you. Sorry about that, Councillor Gilroy. You can unmute yourself and
Unmute. Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. And thank you very much for allowing me to speak here today. I really appreciate that. So I want to talk about our vacant buildings a little bit more. I know that there's been a lot of motions going around, and I just want to talk about some of the research I've done. So first, we are behind other Canadian cities, and we can really learn from them on what they're doing. Cities across Canada are already acting. Vancouver has returned more than 15,000 homes to use through the empty home tax, which generates over $30 million annually to help fund the affordable housing. Toronto, Ottawa, Hamilton, and Windsor are all implementing their own vacancy tax, some raising as high as 3%. These policies are backed by real enforcement and measurable results. Meanwhile, Winnipeg still allows properties to remain vacant and derelict for years and years with little consequences. We do have some tools, inspection, repair orders, and limit ability to bill for fire response. But we don't have as an escalation path for long-term neglect or any mechanisms to bring back properties back into active use. That's why this motion matters. It directs the city to look seriously at the tools we are not using and ask how we could use them. Second, the motion introduces bold and reasonable tools, including compulsory leasing. Compulsory leasing means that after a property has sat vacant for years without meaningful effort to sell, rent, or repair, it could be temporarily leased to the city for public benefit with compensation to the owner. This is a middle ground before inactive appropriation. Unprecedented. In Germany, cities like Hamburg can temporarily rent out chronically vacant homes. In Barcelona, officials can compel owners to rent out long-term vacant properties after 2 years. In Scotland, recent legislation allows forced rental or sale of abandoned properties. These are tools used by responsible, respecting governments to meet public needs during housing crisis. But before some say that this isn't a municipal responsibility, yes, housing deliveries often falls on the province, but that's not a reason for Winnipeg to sit this one out. In fact, this is an opportunity to work in step with the province. The city could manage, enforce property oversight, what they're doing now, while the province or housing partners manage tenancy and services. That kind of collaboration could be especially valuable during a time of growing housing need when hundreds of homes sit empty for years. We cannot afford to ignore this potential. Third, this motion calls for proper legal and policy review. Winnipeg already has some legal authorities under the City of Winnipeg Charter and the building bylaw, and even taken title without compensation. But we rarely use these tools. We haven't done a full review in a long time. How far the charter allows us to go, what property rights or human right case laws apply, are what models other cities are successfully using that could be used here. We need that review. Without it, we are left using the same limited approaches year after year with little change on the ground. In closing, this motion is not radical, it's pragmatic, it's responsible, it's taking serious policy and legal questions and learning from what other cities are doing with the same tools that we have at our disposal. Because when the city lets homes sit empty and rot for years while people sleep in shelters or struggle to find places to live, that's not just a missed opportunity. That really is a policy failure. Let's fix that. Let's study our options and bring Winnipeg up to the same standard of action we're seeing across other cities in Canada and the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor Gilroy. I appreciate you coming to delegation. Questions? I see Councilor Chambers.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation this morning, Councillor Gilroy. There are tools that we have that I don't think are well utilized in terms of some of the derelict buildings and derelict properties that we have in the inner city and in the West End area. What would you propose would move things along in terms of whether it is taking over a derelict building or compelling a homeowner or a building owner to renovate or fix up and meet the code conditions that sometimes will shut these places down?
So first thing, I think the first approach is we need to have a vacancy property tax like they do in other major cities. Right now, we're more on we come in after the fact. So we charge a lot of fees on the back end instead of being proactive on the front end. And we need to apply increased rates to derelict properties in particular. So in some like Edmonton has subclasses of vacant buildings and so like we could be charging fees depending on the subclass. We need to make annual occupancy declarations mandatory, and that's kind of something what Councillor Duncan tried to do with his last motion. I mean, we do have properties that are trying to become in compliance. If we do have those kind of properties, if we have these declarations and we know that they're actually working on it, then we wouldn't be triggering these fees and fines that now we have to go and deal with through our appeals body. So we should be looking at the other cities are using those tools a lot more effectively, and we really need to enforce these strict timelines and real penalties for inaction. And that's something that we're just failing to do right now, and I don't think we have the manpower. So that's a discussion we're going to have. But at the end of the day, if we're not really enforcing the rules and the penalties, it really is not going to meet the demand. And we need to have public reports that come about that have rehab outcomes. So if you look at what other cities are doing, we're basically all other cities, like we do have some sort of annual review, but it's not really a full intensive review like they have in other cities. So for example, in other cities, they have how many vacant buildings that they have, but how many they have followed compliance orders, how much money we've generated from these buildings. I think that that's really important. Another thing that we haven't used at all, which we have we have the ability to do, is take title without compensation. I think it's been decades and decades and decades that we've ever done this, and yet we have these buildings sitting vacant. I have buildings in my ward that I've been at least 25 years sitting vacant, and so we really need to use the tools available to us if we start. And I think that we're going to have to look at taking the funding that we're getting and putting them back into the enforcement part of it. So I know I could talk a lot about it. I'll stop there. Sorry.
Follow-up for Councillor Gilroy, and then Councillor Wyatt has a question.
Just as a follow-up, the other cities that you're talking about that are more proactive in terms of, you know, these initiatives and exercises and whatnot, have you been able to determine if those other cities have a housing department?
You know, they do have housing departments. They do. They have a lot more. Obviously, they are far ahead of us than what we're doing. But I think that as we move into a city that's close to having 1 million people, we better get prepared. I mean, you think that we're seeing places like Toronto and Vancouver that still have places that are boarded up and vacant. They're having issues, even though that that people want to live in these cities, right? And so we got to start getting our ducks in a row and getting prepared, because I don't think we're going to see an increase of vacant buildings, not a decrease. So I think that I'd like to see us more prepared and really know what these other cities are doing. Try to find a Winnipeg model that works, learning from what other cities have already done. Like, I mean, for Edmonton, for example, Edmonton has triple the tax on derelict buildings, right? So there's so many things that we could be doing.
Councillor Wyatt?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Gilroy, for your presentation. Are you aware that under Mayor Glenn Murray, that he had negotiated and succeeded in bringing in changes and powers to the city of Winnipeg pertaining to the vacant and derelict buildings bylaw? Are you aware of that?
Yes.
Are
Yeah.
you
We have some of these tools, we're just not using them.
Right, and are you aware that the vacant and derelict buildings bylaw, shortly after the bylaw came into effect, that we had a proactive division inside the property and development department headed by Jerry Sokolsky, who actively enforced proactively all the derelict and vacant buildings in the city, in the inner city and elsewhere.
Mhm.
And that this committee was constantly hearing appeals by individuals who were trying to attempt to avoid the ever rising tax that we already have in place tied to the vacant and derelict building bylaw that would be applied if we enforced it. Are you aware of that?
Yeah, and we do still hear those. They're at community services, so we have this unique kind of two departments that are kind of working hand in hand. So it's kind of complex because some of it's PP&D and some of it's community services. But
All of it is
yeah.
PP&D. It should all be here. But anyway, I don't know when it was moved there, but that we actually heard literally at the beginning of every meeting starting in 2006, we would be sitting in appeals. In constant appeals of property owners who were trying to avoid the rising fee tied to the vacant and derelict building bylaw, the tax you're calling it, that they wanted time to reglaze the property or to bring the property online to rehab it, but that we were also actively taking properties then in tax sale because they weren't paying for those fees and they are applied directly on the property tax bill. And in the event they don't pay, we can take the property then. And that a lot of the issues you're raising have already been sorted out. They're just not being proactively enforced in terms of our existing staffing and what we're doing now and where we've earmarked staffing or stolen from Peter to pay Paul to balance budgets and whatnot. So this is a direct result of all the years of 0% and then low taxation that we've undermined the ability of the department to do the job that we've already got the legislative powers to do. Are you aware of that?
Yes, however, I do think that this motion takes it a bit further. Like if we start having a vacancy tax, that's something we don't have. And so, and proactive declarations, those are things we don't have. So there are some really new things that are out there that other cities are doing that we can really learn from. So I do agree with you. We are very weak, especially in making sure that we're not with the penalties and taking title. You're absolutely correct. But I think that there's other things that we could help to manage it before it gets to the stage of taking title. right? So that's what I think we would all hope.
What I'm confused about here, Cindy, is that we already have that tax. It's tied to the vacant and derelict building bylaw. We already
Yeah,
have.
but there's other cities have really they have subsets of the different housing. So this would allow us to really look at what other cities are doing and really put it into what the city's doing. A lot of us a lot of our fees are kind of, you get a cost a lot when you get a call for service and stuff like that. Where instead of putting it right on to the actual, like they have up to 3% more like of a vacant tax than just the property tax that generates revenue in Vancouver, right? So there are other things that we could be doing.
Well, I hear you, but instead of asking for another initiative with a new tax, why couldn't we increase the fees tied to the vacant and derelict building bylaw? Because the tax is there. The issue is not going to be in terms of the tax. The issue is in terms of the enforcement or the lack thereof by the public service because they've been cut or resources removed from that division that Sokolsky once had. And I can tell you right now that the proactive enforcement that was once done is not occurring. And instead of betting that, you know, the real issue here is number one, enforcement by the city being proactive and having the resources. And then the second issue, are you aware, is the issue of the provincial government stepping up in terms of assisting us proactively to deal with the issue of asbestos and the lack of contractors out there with regards to asbestos remediation on these properties, which is holding up demolition by months and months and months. And that we really need another tiger team, as Councillor DeSchmidt called it when he was chair of this committee, to be able to tackle these problems immediately at a staff level, both at the provincial government and the city, and that proper resources need to be earmarked. That's the issue. And if we don't tackle that, you can have a new tax if you want, but if it's not going to be enforced, what's the point of it? We can't even enforce the existing vacant and derelict building bylaw.
Well, I think you're kind of, I agree with you. I think we're talking about the same things. But at the end of the day, if we have something that says you can no longer have a house vacant after 3 years, that right away is a number one incentive. That is without having more bylaws go out, the cost of bylaws. Right away, you're setting a date that you better come compliance. Right? And if you have mandatory compulsory declarations, you're enforcing, like you don't have to do the enforcing because those policies are doing it for you, right? Like we have housing, we can have all the bylaw enforcement we can dream up, but if we're not setting limits and strict penalties, we're not going to get anywhere. And so that's what other cities have had to do.
One final question here, Councillor Wyatt has a final question.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, I don't know, with all due respect, Councillor Gilroy, like, I don't know if you're 100% familiar with the vacant derelict building bylaw, because it has a rising tax that keeps going up in the event that they choose to do nothing. And that it's already in place, but it's not being enforced. It's doing and the powers that we achieved under Murray when he negotiated with the province had to be done carefully because of private property rights, right, in this country. And that they were negotiated, and we have all the powers right now to do exactly what you're asking for. We have the powers to start cleaning up our neighborhoods and knocking down these buildings or taking them over because the fees ever rise constantly on the property owner, but none of it's being proactively enforced. This is the issue. The issue
So, and I'll do
This isn't an info session here. Is there
Well,
a
it's
question
more
there,
of a-
Councillor Wyatt?
yeah, I want to respond to that though. Like I would like to respond because I do appreciate, I know Councillor Wyatt's been
Thank you.
very supportive of these issues. So my response to that though is I am asking for 3-year limits. I have vacant buildings that have been sitting here for 20 years. And all due respect, like I do respect a lot of the work that's been done during Glen Murray's, but that's been, I mean, that's decades old. Like that's a long time ago. There's new things that are out there. The city has shifted and changes. Policies have changed over the years. Other cities are doing new things. Say to all residents that you cannot have a vacant building more than 3 years. Otherwise, whether it's the tools that we're using now or Glen Murray's era or whatever you decide, 3 years, that's it, people. We're dealing with it.
Thank you very much, Councilor Gilroy. I appreciate your time this morning.
Yeah.
We have one other registered delegate here.
Yes, Roxanne Dupuis from the Société de la Francophonie Manitobaine is here with respect to report 7, and Roxanne is joining us via Zoom. And Roxanne,
We also have Councillor Ely that's
We'll
interested.
suspend rules for two other delegates.
we've just asked you to unmute your microphone and then you can proceed with your presentation. We have up to 5 minutes.
Bonjour, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you very much. Good morning.
Great, good morning. Bonjour, I'm here to speak regarding item number 7, proposed evaluation criteria for the request for proposals on the property management of Cadiz Civic de Saint-Boniface, otherwise known as Saint-Boniface City Square, and amended terms of reference. Chairperson Duncan, Councillor Santos, Councillor Wyatt, City of Winnipeg staff, bonjour, good morning. Thank you very much for welcoming me and for your consideration and interest in the Cadiz Civic de Saint-Boniface project over the past several years. My name is Roxanne, and I'm here on behalf of our Executive Director of la Société de la Francophonie Manitobaine, Jean-Michel Baudry. As you know, the Cadiz Civic holds a particular importance for the City of Winnipeg and its Francophone community. During the city's public consultations between August 2024 and January 2024, more than 1,250 residents affirmed the site held a particular importance, and 3 words used most often describe its importance were history, culture, and community. When the City of Winnipeg celebrated its 150th anniversary last year, Mayor Gillingham took the time to recognize the Francophone community by saying, and I quote, "We are celebrating our 150th anniversary as a city, and the Francophone community really has been there at the very beginning, was the key foundation of Winnipeg and key to the future of our city as well," end quote. As such, the Cadiz Civic is a physical representation of the Francophone community in Manitoba's capital city. That is why the Société de la Francophonie Manitobaine is happy to speak in support of the recommendations outlined in the administrative report at item 7 regarding proposed evaluation criteria for the request for proposals on the property management of Cadiz Civic de Saint-Boniface, Saint-Boniface City Square, and amended terms of reference. We would like to acknowledge the civil services for their support and attentiveness during the consultation process, and more recently with the new Cadiz Civic de Saint-Boniface board. The recommended criteria acknowledge the public's wishes for the space to remain accessible and for the site to promote Francophone art, language, culture, and history in relation to Saint-Boniface, the City of Winnipeg, and the province of Manitoba. As a province in Manitoba, in turn, recently launched wide-reaching public consultations in order to make the province truly bilingual, it's heartening to see the City of Winnipeg take steps to promote the Francophone community of Winnipeg and ensure a bright future for its official languages. Don't want to take up more of your time today, but I am here at your disposition if you have any questions. Thanks again for your attentiveness, and I'd like to once again thank the city staff that has been attached to this file. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Dupuis. I do not see any questions at this time. I appreciate you coming forward to speak in delegation.
Thanks for having me.
All right, that wraps on our delegations listed.
We have another delegation that I'd like to suspend the rules to hear.
Thank you, Councilor Wyatt. Yes.
Yes,
And this is in regards to.
yes, Lilani Villaba of the Chalmers Neighborhood Renewal Corporation is here, wishes to speak to a resolution that we have before us. I would need suspension of the rules, I think, also because it's a new item on the agenda that we're adding, so I don't know how we should do that. First, suspend the rules to add the item to the agenda.
Yes, the clerk just informed me, Madam Clerk just informed me that how this works.
So the committee would need to suspend the rules to hear the delegation, and then additionally, they would need a suspension of the rules to hear a delegation for a subject matter not on the agenda.
So I would move that we add the said resolution as a new item on the agenda first. Be considered, I guess, as item number 20. And then I'll move that we hear the delegation pertaining to the new item number 20.
So the two motions here. And that's in correct order, clerk.
If you'd like to suspend the rules to consider the item of new business from Councillor Wyatt, can certainly do that first, if you'd
All in
like.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. And opposed, and that is carried.
I'll move that we suspend the rules so that,
Councillor Edy.
Ms. Billabong could be able to speak, as well as I believe Councillor Edy wishes to speak to the same item. So, maybe if she can speak first, followed by Councillor Edy.
First, I go to.
Yeah, he's in committee.
Oh, okay, Councillor Edy first then, sure.
Okay.
Sorry about that, Lilani. Councillor Edy polls.
Back to the other meeting. All right, so we have to do, can we vote on both of them at once here?
Sure, and is Councillor Sharma here to speak to it as well? No, okay, very good.
Okay, so Councillor Wyatt has moved to the committee suspend the rules to hear both Councillor Edy and Leilani to be with respect to the item not previously. on the
Thank you
agenda.
very much.
And are we prepared for this item that was moved here so that the public knows what we're talking about? Can it be read into the record?
Sure.
Okay.
Can you-
And I'd like to do that, Councillor Edy. We're just gonna quickly read this item into the record and then we'll hear from. Yeah, sorry, I'll call to the question on suspension of rules to hear from additional delegates. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and that is carried. And then I'll ask the clerk just to read into the record what Councillor Wyatt has put forward as a motion for new business.
Sure. The motion is, whereas the late Councillor Jason Schreier had a vision working with the community and via the Chalmers Neighborhood Renewal Corporation to create a central meeting space at Johnson Avenue and Henderson Highway that would include amenities such as an entertainment stage, a food rescue operation, transitional housing, housing services, eviction prevention, along with other outdoor and indoor public uses. And whereas the addresses of 243 Henderson Highway and 241 Henderson Highway have been identified as the key locations for said new public facility, therefore be it resolved that the public service be directed to work with the Chalmers Neighborhood Renewal Corporation to bring the process necessary to assemble both 243 and 241 Henderson Highway as City of Winnipeg owned land in order to assist with facilitating former Councillor Schreier's dream for his community.
So we'll consider that motion later in the agenda, but now I'd like to call upon Councillor Edy to speak to delegation for this item. Good morning, Councillor Edy. Thank you for stepping away from your committee.
Yeah, good morning, and Mr. Chairperson, very important motion being brought forward by Councillor Wyatt. We've been talking about this now pretty well since Councillor Schreier passed, and we really need to do something to acknowledge the community work that Jason did a lot of that, and he was really proud of how things were moving forward with the food rescue at, I guess that's 241, and the vision really was to call it the Jason Schreier's Corner, and it's at Johnson and Henderson Highway. Chalmers Renewal Corporation will be speaking to detail, but essentially what was going on though was so Councillor Schreier was funding it through the various means through our whatever is available for our wards and the funds available, and provided things. And at 241, he envisioned that there could be a stage where local people could present their artistic thing, whether it's poetry, music. As you know, Councillor Schreier was known to sing wherever he was, right? And he did promote something over on Watt Street in the past to bring music and space for community and neighborhood residents to get together and enjoy each other's art ability. And so Councillor Wyatt was working at this, and I mean, I'll leave up the details, but really I do believe 233 and
43.
43. Is it 240?
Yeah, I mentioned in the motion is 243 and 241.
Oh, right. Okay, so 241 is the building, 243, sorry. Get confused, but I do believe some money was allocated from Councillor Schreier's funds to purchase 241 Henderson Highway, the building on the opposite corner from where the food rescue program and food is available to people in the neighborhood to come and get food. And it's going to be a great effort there. But anyway, it needs a stage, and essentially, I think that it would be probably better if the city did own that lot on the northeast corner of Johnson and Henderson. And I hope that you'll all support it. Councillor Wyatt, I think, is enlisted professional to assist in the program. And if the money's needed initially for architectural consideration stuff, I believe that Councillor Wyatt and I are looking at, we would look to fund the that cost. So hopefully it goes through, and I'll leave it at that. Lonnie does great work in the Chalmers neighborhood, and I'm sure she'll have a lot more specific to say. But
Thank you.
thanks, Russ, for doing this. And I think it's time that council, we need to move forward and acknowledge the loss of our colleague, and so we can leave a Jason Schreier place for him to be remembered for all the work he did in the community. So,
And if you can hang tight, council or committee members, keeping in mind, Councilor Edie does have a community committee going on
I
here.
just wanted to
Yeah,
thank,
Councilor Wyatt.
I just want to thank Councilor Edie. He's very humble, but he tasked me to meet with Lonnie, who I'd never had met yet. I met her for the first time yesterday and got to know her, and how much Jason worked with her over the years. And I've for the first time fully got to understand Jason's vision. And I just want to thank you, Councilor Edie, for giving me that opportunity or to kind of pull this together. And we might have brought this forward, but it really was you kind of urging that process on. So I just want to thank you for doing that. So
we were all close friends, Russ.
yeah.
The three amigos.
Councilor Chambers?
Yeah, and this might be a little into the weeds at this point, but this corner lot here, the northeast corner lot at Henderson Highway and Johnson, was a gas station at one point, zoned as C2.
Yeah.
In terms of any further development, doesn't there have to be a remediation period? Because it's a former gas station?
Actually, what's happening is, right now, it has been mitigated in that there's nothing being built on there. If you put a stage on there, it's a surface issue. You're not having to break the ground, and the cargo container, rather large, is there. Electrical's already been there. Like Councillor Schreier did already fund a part, and council actually, we voted to allow him to use some of his LDR actually, because it was not going on to city land necessarily, right? So what's envisioned for that corner doesn't involve having to go underground.
Okay.
So it's about, I mean, you got to maintain the topping or whatever, and it was a gas station like. It was a golf station.
Yeah.
So when I could still see, that's when it was a gas station. Shortly after I lost my eyesight in 84, 85, it had closed down. So,
And maybe I could ask more an are you aware question, because we have to ask questions that, are you aware that I've been in touch with, I know you are aware, with industry consultants who are specialized in doing this type of work, which would involve dealing with the encapsulation of the site with minimizing remediation costs. That she's been in touch with them regarding that, and it would be something that would be a surprise. I think that who knows, when the time comes to determine the overall budget, I'm sure there may be another level of government who may want to participate as well, knowing how important Jason was there too. So I think it's something that And that the industry, the consultant who she's been in touch with is very experienced in terms of dealing with issues like this now. So hopefully that can be addressed, to address Councillor Chambers' point, so.
Yeah, well, and also, I mean, there are ways of dealing with it. I have a new 72 unit apartment going up on what used to be an old gas station and car wash, so with all kinds of tanks under the ground and that sort of stuff. So
Yeah.
Lots to work through on that.
there is, there's no doubt, but I think this is the right way to go. And last thing I will point out, I went down there a few weeks after he passed away, just to check it out. And I have to say, the sidewalk from Johnson to Chalmers Avenue, that's the next street north. That sidewalk, we need to fix it. It is awful. It's a mess. It's dangerous. I almost whacked my head falling. It's a really weird, there needs to be some work done there as well. I don't know if that'll come into any plans in the future, but really it's, that sidewalk's
The
bad.
good news on the sidewalk front is yourself and Council Chambers are on Public Works, and you guys.
I'm not gonna say that.
Okay.
Well, no, but all joking aside, Councillor Eady, when we did the Transco Centennial Square, and it's the same consultant that Lavani's been in touch with now who designed and did so. We leveraged the Public Works Department to do work at that time in downtown Transcona with regards to sidewalks and everything.
Yeah.
And that's something to
Yeah, we
consider.
can
There does look to be some new sidewalk.
On Johnson,
Curb cut.
Johnson.
Johnson's good. They just did Johnson.
Let's not get too far off being path.
Yeah,
Anyway, Johnson was already just renewed, so
Yeah,
it's
Johnson's great.
Henderson Highway there that needs the work.
Yeah.
So
Thank you very much
Thank you.
for your time this
Sorry,
morning,
thanks.
Council. We'll move on to Lelani, I believe was our next delegation.
Yes, Leilani Esteban Villarba, who's from the Chalmers Neighborhood Renewal Corporation, speaking with respect to the new business item.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for your time.
Your delegation.
Thank you so much for hearing me. We are proposing what Russ had mentioned. Jason Schreier was instrumental in the community of Chalmers Elmwood, and he brought so much light, energy, and passion to what he believed the needs of the community were. I might start crying. So we work closely in the food security area, and he did support a lot of the initiatives and gave us a lot of funding in terms of developing those projects. So 2 storage containers are coming. He brought several partners together to make this dream come true for a community that is an absolute food desert. And so we have no big chain grocery stores. So the need for something for this community in terms of food security is huge. And so when the opportunity to bring a food rescue project came, he jumped on it and he pulled us in, and we said, okay, let's do this. So 243 became the place that was kind of like the focus. And then when 241 went up for sale, he said, this is the perfect place for a food rescue store. And that food rescue store also had the opportunity to provide transitional housing. So it was all encompassing. So it would house our food, our housing team, and transitional housing for people who were about to become unsheltered. And it would provide a social enterprise to allow them to learn job skills through the food rescue project. So these are things that he was absolutely passionate about. He absolutely believed in the project. He wanted it to happen and gave us all the power and the vision. And slowly we were making it possible. And we were so close, and then we lost him. And I'd like to continue to do what he dreamed for the community, because his vision met the needs of so many in the community, of so many of the vulnerable populations in our community. And there's nothing there for the community in terms of food security. And we need to meet those needs and address those gaps in our community. And so if we could follow his dream and make it real for the community of Elmwood Chalmers, there would be so much benefit to that community. And I'm going to stop these.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time this morning. See no questions.
I just want to thank,
Yeah, please.
just want to thank Lolani for making time yesterday, and I would have preferred to be doing this with Jason here. He's not, and we'll carry on as we can. Anyway, thanks for all the work you do. Anyway, thanks. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you for
Appreciate your
listening.
time.
Thank you.
Don't believe we have any other delegations for us this morning.
Mr. Chairperson,
Yes.
would it be possible with on a year to move suspension of the rules to do with us now?
I was hoping that we could potentially have
Mr. Chappell,
the
Mr.
public
Chappell's
service
in the room.
to,
I would move suspension so we can do it. Mr. Chappell's here and
yeah, we can look at that if that's the will of the committee. I know that this was brought to the public servicing committee's attention this morning.
yeah.
Here, so I just want to make sure that we have enough time to look it over. Right, Barry?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. That's fine. We can move that new business report to the top of the file here. So that's dealing with item number 23.
New business.
Okay. We'll hear from the public service. I'm assuming that's the request at this point in time. Ready? Yes?
If there is a motion.
Okay, okay.
I'll pass it over to Gord.
Okay.
Our director, I apologize, Cecil Morris is with us this morning, Gord Chapel also with us here this morning for other items, but lucky enough to speak on this, which is specific to property and real estate.
And since he's the acting manager of real estate and land development, thank you, Gord.
Yeah, had the chance to speak with Councillor Wyatt this morning. Did a bit of brief research on the site, so I do understand that it is impacted, which is always a concern to acquire land that's impacted. But I think the intent of the motion was that the city begin discussions with the owners and determine what it would take to acquire the land and see if that's an opportunity. I may suggest that we report back in 90 days with budgetary needs. It's my understanding that 241 Henderson is currently listed for $415,000. That may be something that we would want to try to acquire sooner than later, if that is part of the motion. In that if someone were to buy it and begin renovating it, and the city was still in that opportunity. So hopefully within 90 days, we have enough time to do appraisals, reach out to the owners, begin those discussions and see where things lead. So yeah,
Okay.
no immediate concerns right now.
Okay, and just for clarity, so those that are here and listening as well, and perhaps this could be city question or councillor question. If the property is real estate, but the actual programming on that property would be done through council or through
I don't think right now, until we have the part of the, I think the programming, they're on the verge of actually having a business improvement zone here. They actually have the votes. Everything's ready to go in terms of that. Plus you have a renewal corporation, which is funded through the province.
Yes.
So you have those two entities and a new biz coming online. Programming, I think, will be less of the issue. The bigger issue, I think, will be the overall capital cost, which would include land assembly. We're trying to do it so that, let's say EPC is bringing forward their budget in December. Let's say an earliest scenario that ideally numbers are prepared for in advance. I believe the mayor's office wants to see something like that so that we know what we're considering. So that was really the need to bring this forward. If I may suggest, a suggestion, just an amendation of Gordon's suggestion of 90 days. With our period of time when we break for the summer, it's not counted in the clock of 90 days. Could we say 60 days? Because you really are getting 90 days.
I was putting it to November, the November meeting, which would be 90. If you want to see October,
I was thinking that only just because I wouldn't want us to lose the opportunity on the property for sale. And if that's the one thing, there are funds in his LDR, in the LDR at Elmwood, but it's something that we would have to look at that time if in advance of a capital budget. That's my only concern, is the loss of the 241 scenario.
We can be specific if it's,
if you like, we could do 30-day report back on the understanding that we'll come back again for in another 30 or 60, because at least if we do 30, that's September.
I'm fine with us just saying October.
Only reason I bring this up is if we want to just complete the appraisal on for 21 specifically.
A verbal
Just-
report even.
Yeah, just if you want to update on that piece,
Sure.
I might have to go in camera.
Yeah,
it's
probably
the
would.
acquisition, and then we can. I'm just not sure how quickly Suncor we can begin those discussions and
The other
how
one,
that's
yeah.
going to look.
Yeah.
Councillor Chambers?
So I believe Councillor had mentioned there's the potential of a biz zone coming along.
There is apparently they have, my understanding, this is my understanding, that they have the 50% plus one assessment, and they and the 50% plus one of businesses, physical businesses, that you need the votes required to establish a biz zone. Apparently that's in place. I understand. That's my understanding. I haven't confirmed that with Mr. Pacheska yet, Martin, but I'll do that later today.
Well, is this something that they would take on in terms of streetscaping?
Well, in the past, I know, for example, the Transcona Centennial Square, all the programming that goes on there is done by the Transcona Biz, for example.
Let's stay out of the weeds on this and let's see what comes back in our period of time here. So we're looking for a verbal report, just to be clear here,
Yeah.
Councillor Wyatt, in which month?
30 days, I think, and then another 30.
And which would land us at what?
We'll go September and then October, November, depending on where.
Yeah,
okay.
But I think for the sake of this is just to say 30 days right now, and then we can make that decision.
Next report back in 30 days, a verbal report back in 30.
And that's it.
So no written report in 60 days?
No, I think I won't have time. I don't think to have a
No.
report.
We can deal with that and then determine written from
Okay.
there.
Yeah.
So provide a verbal report back in 30 days with budgetary needs to begin the process necessary to assemble both 243 and 241 Henderson.
Yeah, that's cool.
We might have to go in camera.
Yeah.
If that's clear, then the clerk, just give her a moment here, yes. Signaling yes, so we can call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
And sorry, Councillor Wyatt moved that.
Moved by Councillor Wyatt. Opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Appreciate the quick work by the public.
Yeah,
affairs
thank you.
And Councillor Wyatt taking this on behalf of Councillor Schreier. We can continue with our agenda, going back up now to report number 1.
Do we have a delegation on item number 19 by chance? Has there been any requests or?
There was a request. We did not receive a registration prior to the deadline.
Okay.
So if the committee wishes to suspend the rules to hear Sahil Garg.
So moved.
Sorry, this was from the EKT.
Yeah, this is the 307, 311.
Something that you were hoping to result. Move. Councillor Chambers moves, suspension of the rules. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that is carried. We'll hear from
Sorry, I wasn't aware that John Winthrop was also presenting, so we can do the suspension of the rules for John as well.
So moved.
Aye.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried.
Good morning. Thank you for suspending the rules and having us here on a beautiful July in Winnipeg. Love coming down to City Hall. Thank you again. We're in compliance with all our agreements with the City of Winnipeg, all regulations. Again, thank you so much for having us here. That's all we have.
Do you have any kind of, I understand you've been in touch with, I have a question. Do you have any?
Yes, Councillor Wyatt.
Thank you. I understand you've been in touch with the planner. There's some sort of plan for, the issue here is access
Egress.
off of Grassy. Do you have a written plan that you've been working on, Mr. Harris, that you'd be able to supply us with?
Yeah, we can confirm we've been working with the public works people about traffic and construction traffic and movements in and off the site.
Okay.
Happily to share it with the city. I believe we've emailed it to the clerk here.
a copy of that or?
We email it to your clerk here for distribution to the committee. That's something we've been working with Public Works on.
Do we just have a check?
I don't know where that they've done the rules.
We just take a break for the clerk to print it because my computer's frozen.
The item is number 19, so we will have time. I'd like to get through this.
Sure.
Into the agenda.
Okay, so we'll deal with it when the time comes. Was there a site plan that came with the wording?
Yeah, so there's a site plan with it, there's a construction
Okay.
traffic plan with it, it kind of shows exactly the sort of route we're gonna be taking
Okay,
to get to the site. This is in accordance to keeping the traffic out of the neighbors and keeping the neighborhood happy
Yeah.
and clean. You know,
the issue here, Mr. Chairperson, is that Degrassi is very extremely busy. It's really acting as a regional street now, even though it's not designed as such. But the traffic is so busy that the original zoning agreement was that they have access only from Grassy. There's another street, a service road called Ham, that would have little impact on the residents versus coming in the residents in the back where it impacts. So they've put together a plan working with Public Works, is my understanding. And that maybe if barricades are put up on Ham to prevent traffic heading north on Ham or accessing from the north, only from Grassy, that would probably address a lot of the concerns. Preventing traffic going through the neighborhood, which has been an issue of construction vehicles, so.
So there's material here that you would like to have considered by the committee.
Yeah, just simply an endorsement when we get to the item, yeah.
We get to the item? Sure. Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
other questions?
No,
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks for your time.
thanks for your
Thank you.
assistance. Thanks, guys.
Okay,
Item 1.
we are on item number 1. Single source negotiation award of service contract extension for the operation of the St. Patel Centennial Arena.
Morning.
Morning. Public service, Mr. Close. Just introduce who you have with you.
Yep.
For the record, and we can move into the item.
Glenn's definition, who is the author of the report and acting manager of municipal accommodations. Yeah, this is fairly simple. Looking to execute a 5-year extension service contract for the St. Patel Centennial Arena going to St. Patel Minor Hockey Association. This is another extension. They've been providing good services of the arena, and hence the recommendation to extend that contract.
Thank you. Bill Mover,
So moved.
moved by Councilor Chambers, all in favor?
That's the recommendation.
That's a public service recommendation, yes, okay. All in favor? Aye, opposed, it's carried. Thank you very much. $300 work on this, Mr. Stephens.
Your coffee didn't even get a chance to cool down.
Item number 2, award contract for the City Archives Building redevelopment, 380 William Avenue.
Yep, looking to get council approval on adding just under 3.5 million to the project coming. That would be through debt, increasing the total debt to 16, just over 16 million for a total contract price of 22,700,000. Low bidder was Boxall Construction, so looking to award to them.
What was the reason for the $3 million increase? 3.4.
I believe after post-tender review, the elements that were most significant and contributing to that were in regards to the civil work as well as mechanical and electrical.
So were these items not identified during the class process?
I think that what we're finding is we had the CCO intervene and review these, seeing that these escalations are in line with current environment and market conditions. So I think it's a trend that's starting to be seen throughout.
And I have a proposed amendment for this item that has been circulated. Hopefully folks have had a chance to read it, but if not, I'll have the clerk read it into the record.
Sure, it's just a suggested new recommendation 7, that the city solicitor and director of legal services be instructed to prepare a bylaw in accordance with this report and bring same directly to council for enactment. That's a new recommendation 7, and the remainder will be renumbered accordingly.
And that's to actually have legal services do a bylaw,
Correct,
right? Because we cannot do that.
correct.
So we gotta vote on the amended motion first.
You can vote for concurrence with the amendment if you wish, but, or you can do them separately, whatever you.
Okay, I'm just saying because it's your motions, so I'm just gonna take the chair. Unless you want me to move.
No, that's fine. So Councillor James takes the chair. I'll move concurrence with the amended motion. And the item as amended.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
And just the scope of the project, the overall scope, you foresee it changing at all?
Morning.
Morning.
No, so we've worked extensively with clerks to really hone down the program. And so what I would say is we have a contingency that's been built into the project that will not guarantee, but certainly assist us in delivering the intent of the project, which is the program that City Archives wishes to.
And this is the former Carnegie Library, correct? Goes back to the days of the great steel baron who donated, I guess back in the days when philanthropists were real philanthropists, in the sense that they weren't doing it for tax reasons. They just simply, there were no taxes back then, so they just simply gave up their money to build libraries all over North America. And this was the one in Winnipeg, I believe.
Yes.
I apologize. If you could just introduce yourself for the record.
I'm sorry, Brent Venuta, manager, major capital project.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, Carnegie Libraries, there's 3 others in the city here. And so that legacy lives on, but the City Archives building is really the gem, I would say, in my humble opinion, and I'm looking forward to advancing this project.
Will this include the ability for greater public accessibility, students doing research and so on different projects? The archives in other cities are a key place for, for example, students studying architecture or planning or what have you, to go into these municipal archives to look at all sorts of things, actually, from all various faculties. Is that something that's being incorporated here as part of this project, that in terms of the public accessibility and being able to engage and use the archives as a source of research?
Yes, I mean, next to the immediate requirement to preserve the city's archival documents, the driver of the program is to enhance the accessibility to everyone, not just people doing research on city history, but as you said, students and others. Absolutely.
Is there any money?
That's why we haven't dealt with the item. So if I could ask you to wrap.
Okay, I know, but I guess the other question I had was, does any of this include upgrading their technologies? There's a lot of the archives right now. I've been there many years ago doing research on another matter. And, you see all the minute books, for example, of all the 4 municipalities are there. And they're all in paper form. Is there any plans to, assist them in terms of digitizing or anything like that? Is that part of this capital or not really?
We're lucky enough actually to have public service members here who are specific to this type of thing. So, again, we've dealt with the item,
Okay.
but because it's an important question, if member of the public service would like to come forward and answer this.
I just like to get some of the stuff out on the record because it's a great project.
Yes.
And it's often we look over the archives as kind of a boring thing, but I think it's kind of cool.
It's not boring at all.
It's kind of cool.
I think Winnipeggers love it.
You don't know your history, you don't know where you're going.
There you go.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm joined today by our city records manager, Alan Nedley, who is dealing with that, just not only with regards to this project, but with regards to archives in general and the digitization of records, who can answer your question probably more appropriately.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Wyatt. Yeah, we certainly are looking for digitization. Some of these minute books don't lend themselves to digitization. We are slowly kind of converting our records electronically to make it more accessible to people. So certainly that's part of this our program, and it was part of our requirements as we built this project.
So there is an element, I guess, of equipment, operational element that's built into the capital program, not just in terms of the building, is that?
Yeah, we have our program requirements and digitization. We have a digitization room. We do have an existing program that this will move over into that building.
And all your archives have been temporarily stored elsewhere, is my understanding, correct?
Yes, that's right. We're at 50 Myrtle in a temporary location, right? Yeah.
And then the key thing here in my mind is there kind of an end game? I know the city auditor has identified the city's challenges, let's say, when it comes to record keeping as a potential future audit that I don't think we've ever pulled the trigger on. But maybe this is one where we get in front of that. Is this something that hopefully by a certain date in mind, do you have kind of a goal to try to achieve a better record keeping system on behalf of the entire service of the city that we presently have right now? I know a lot of it's on Demas, but everything before Demas is the challenge, and everything before Unicity could be the challenge. So I guess that's my question: is there kind of an end goal in terms of that upgrading of modernizing the storage of archives so it's more accessible electronically and elsewhere?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all part of our program. It's always a challenge with technology. It's moving very fast. It's always the goal for us to make sure that we are keeping records for the citizens, for all time, right? For accountability and transparency. So it's all part of our program and a fundamental requirement of our business.
And have we done everything on microfilm so far in terms of the archive books and everything? Is that so far the technology used?
We do have a lot microfilmed, and then we are digitizing as we go forward.
Hopefully AI will assist you on that. So who knows? Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Thanks for your time.
Appreciate all the comments here.
Thanks for the work you're doing.
Unanimously to support this, so look forward to it. Obviously, the current setup is not ideal and lends itself to
Thanks, Brent.
potential catastrophic event should something go wrong. So this will secure our cities and our RM's histories that were encompassed in the city. Item number 3, fee structure related to the development of the public tree fund. Public service recommendation is a 120-day work back on this. Any movers?
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Wyatt. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? That's carried. We'll hear back in 120 days. Item number 4, Housing Supply Partnership and Residential Density Bonus Pilot Program. Welcome to our public service here. Good morning. Introduce yourselves for the record. Much appreciated.
Good morning, councillors. My name is Elise Finnegan, and I'm the Affordable Housing Concierge with the Housing Accelerator Fund team. Emma, do you want to?
Sure. Good morning. My name is Emma Feinblatt. I'm the Housing and Neighborhood Revitalization Coordinator.
Thank you for the question. Any questions here for the public service at this point in time?
How's your dad?
He's doing well, thank you.
Yeah,
I will.
okay. Aggressively. Is there anything we need to know?
I have a brief overview if you'd like to hear that.
Yeah, looks like the committee as well.
Okay. So in a nutshell, this report provides updates on a number of different housing initiatives, including seeking council approval on some key items. More specifically, as the city advances the HAF action plan and continues to streamline housing activities, we're undertaking 2 studies that will inform long-term policies, namely the housing needs assessment and an affordable housing incentives and policy study. The results of these studies will help inform ongoing efforts to develop a longer-term citywide housing strategy and action plan as identified in Council's Strategic Priorities Action Plan. Additionally, as part of these streamlining efforts, the HAF team is expanding to include oversight over other housing programs, such as the longstanding Housing Rehabilitation and Investment Reserve Fund, or HRIR for short. With this shift of the administration of the HRIR fund over to the CAO's office, we're seeking council approval for the fund manager role to move from the director of PPMD to the CAO. The report also provides an update on the residential density bonus pilot program for affordable housing, which was approved by council back in 2023. So council directed a report back on the pilot, which is outlined in the report. At this time, the pilot is recommended to remain in place with slightly expanded geographic criteria, also outlined in the report. It's not recommended to be a permanent program at this time until the results of the forthcoming affordable housing incentives and policy studies are known. So we're seeking council approval for the expanded geographic criteria and expansion of the memorandum of understanding with the province, who assists in long-term monitoring of affordability requirements. Further in the report, we provide updates on some of the long-standing housing programs, including for council's awareness that the $50 million of future incremental taxes that council committed to the Affordable Housing Now TIF program in 2022 have been fully committed, as well as the $2 million in grants. The full list of conditionally approved projects are outlined in Appendix 1 of the report. And finally, as we continue to work on a variety of housing initiatives, we have strengthened a partnership with the province on a variety of activities and are seeking council direction to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the province to advance a housing supply partnership. As a first initiative under this partnership, we'll work on accelerating supportive housing on city-owned lands. We'll report back to council on this specific initiative in September 2025. And that concludes my overview. Happy to respond to any questions.
See your hand up there, Councilor White.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Person. About a month ago, I had a chance to meet one of the components who was selected, I guess, in the last round of the HAF. The issue that they're running into now is the rising construction costs. Is there a way that your division can proactively deal with situations like that? Because he's now, it's 98 Pauline, where basically he applied and he received half of what was the request. But it's basically a situation where this project, which I think is a great project, it's not in my ward, it's in Councillor Santos's ward. I brought her up to speed with what's going on. What I learned is on the verge of tanking. And that the entire project, in terms of the affordable part, will be wiped out. It'll be a floor market only, because the numbers aren't just working now for the developers. So is there any possibility that that could be pursued and looked at, especially in light of the fact that there's going to be the next tranche of, I think it's 66 million has been committed out of the HAF, but then you've got the balance still coming next year. Is there a way to maybe look at that and see if that project can be pulled out of the fire, so to speak? And I don't know what other entities are having challenges too. Because it's easy to say, okay, here they apply for 5 million and they're doing it on the basis of what they need for the units, and then we only award half, right? This was the case there, I believe. But now on top of that, they're faced with industry challenges, and is it something that you could consider taking back? And I've spoken to Mr. Driver about this. I'm familiar with it. And there were some discussions, but right now it doesn't look good. And I just want to do what we can to save the project, considering he has a very much a proven track record. He did the Avenue. He's done a lot of affordable housing projects in the past. I just don't want him to walk from the downtown, right? So anyway, any thoughts on that?
I am aware of the project.
Yeah.
And I guess at this stage, they are receiving funding through the HAF Capital Grants Program, which is fully subscribed at the moment, as well as funding through the Affordable Housing Now TIF program. So again, which is fully committed. So at this point, we haven't identified any additional funding for the grants program or for the TIF program. So We're not currently in a position, as far as the city is concerned, to provide additional funding. But certainly we can, talk to the proponent to find out a bit more about the details of their situation.
Yeah, I mean, I just, if there's, that would be great. Fantastic. I know from what's happened with regards to this, I guess this kind of leads to my second question, but with what's happened with regards to the National Housing Fund. And I don't know how much your office has been engaged in that. I know the mayor's office has been engaged with Ottawa. That the National Housing Fund has kind of been suspended. The funds in there now has affected about half a dozen projects in the city, including one involving Winnipeg Housing at 145 Transcontinental Boulevard. And that they were receiving, for example, $5 million out of the HAF. Now their cash flow on that is going to be impacted. What I guess I'm getting at is maybe there's a way for them to steal from Peter to pay Paul, in the sense that, well, Winnipeg Housing is now held up 6 months, and we're now talking about the new tranche of funding coming in of HAF. We can pull from that, but then get funds going into other projects that keep them going as well. If you follow me, you're trying to balance a limited amount of HAF funds, but if I understand correctly, the HAF right now, for about 6 projects can't go forward because until we know the status of the federal government's funding model, which is I think tied up with their new build housing Canada, or whatever the new Crown Corporation is called, being taken out of the CMHC, which is great news as long as it's funded properly, right? We're all waiting on that. So any thoughts on that? But I appreciate that. I appreciate you taking it back. So thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. I'd be very happy to meet with you guys. Yeah.
You're gonna move on this?
So moved.
Thank you, Council Wyatt. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Thanks for your work, you guys.
Item 5. Option purchase agreements, and the director of development corporation. We have a public service recommendation before us. An overview, or we'd like to move?
Yeah, an overview would be nice.
Great.
Good morning.
Good morning again. Joining us are Gord Chappelle, Acting Manager of Real Estate and Land Development, and Jess Casera, Acting Administrator of Real Estate and Land Development, to speak to this item.
This report is seeking approval for a new option to purchase agreement with Center Venture. In 2018, council granted Center Venture an option to purchase a number of city-owned properties. And in September 2020, council approved the extension of the original agreement. Since then, most of the properties have been transferred and sold. We are now requesting that a new option to purchase be granted for the remainder properties. So that is the north portion of Market Land, a portion of land at 100 Henry, and 2 parts of 401 Waterfront Drive. The new option is necessary to complete the transfer of these remaining properties. Center Venture expects to proceed with the development on 2 of these sites in 2025, while the remaining properties may require additional marketing efforts. The proposed agreement will expire in December 2028.
So, sorry, so the north portion of the Market Lands, we're talking about this over here?
Yes.
Okay. Right.
And that is one that is expected to be dealt with this year.
Yeah, I'm just curious, how we done it, Center Venture started off with us as a city. I think it was $10 million we took out of our reserves to get them going at the beginning, way back when. Basically, we'd be paid back one day, which I think was way too much later. And then we also, at the time when it was created, earmarked to them formally any lands in the downtown that we owned, on the basis that the idea would be that they would be the main development agency to try to bring these lands back into productive use. Has an assessment been done on lands that were owned by the city of Winnipeg in the downtown, a comprehensive assessment of potential lands that could still be earmarked to Center Venture to kind of rejuvenate it, give them some land to work towards? I'm thinking of parking lots or anything else that we've acquired or have sat on. Has that exercise been undertaken, or is that something that could still be done?
No, the asset agreement we had with Center Venture expired several years back, from early that year. So we haven't done that. Our holdings downtown are extremely limited. There's not much that we have, so we haven't performed that. The only land that we're likely to acquire that surplus is tax sale from time to time, which is basically what populated the original asset agreement to begin with. So no, there hasn't been any type of study done, and I don't know that there would be that much to study.
And has Centerventure approached us in terms of any kind of new initiatives pertaining to tax increment financing or any other options that tools we've used in the past to help facilitate development? I'm talking specifically also regarding heritage buildings and everything. Is that something there's been any discussions on with them, at this point?
I can't speak to that.
Not at this point.
Okay, well, so we have a new executive director there, I believe, our CEO. I'm not sure her title, but
Her title is CEO, and we do meet with her on a frequent basis to try to collaborate and
she came to council last month. So.
move a number of things forward that we are happy to talk about in future meetings. Not quite ready yet.
Good, wonderful. No, that's great. Thank you. So moved.
Councilor Wyatt, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? And that is carried. Thanks for proposing promotion agreement between the rural municipality of Rosser and the city of Winnipeg on borders for the underground force mains on Red and Bike Road and Street Road. Questions of council?
What's driving this? Encouragement. What?
Yeah, so we currently have an encroachment with them. So now we need access onto their land to help service Centerport land. So we're just sort of swapping lands and at no cost. So it would be waiving licensing fees for future encroachments as well.
Yeah, and maybe I can just add one comment, just in discussion with the clerk, we might want to just clean up the language of recommendation 2, who had the word license between waive and fees, just so that's clear, that's within our authority.
With license fees.
Yeah, waive license fees.
Sorry, that's number 2.
Recommendation 2, yeah, the second line there, waive fees, waive license fees.
When does the agreement come up that we struck with the arm of Rosser in terms of servicing them for sewer and water?
That I don't know, that's a question for water and waste. Our encroachment with them goes back, I don't know, maybe
I thought it
7
was
years.
a 10-year agreement. That would have been by now, but
Yeah, I think 2018 was when our encroachment started. Yeah.
no, I'm talking about the servicing. Of the
Yeah, I don't know if that would have been tied around the same time, I assume.
Okay, all right.
Move the public service recommendations
As amended?
as amended, yeah, sorry. Adding the word license between waive and fees.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That is carried. We'll move on to item number 7. Proposed valuation criteria for request
yes.
for proposal on the property management.
Yeah, we got a good,
St. Boniface.
got a good overview from the,
Yes.
yeah. So I moved the public service recommendation.
Is this St. Boniface City Square?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what's happening with that then? What are they moving on? What are they trying to?
So we're trying to find a property manager to maintain the whole area. So that would be for 219, 233 Bravache, and then 212 Dumoulin, and then the sculpture garden. So there was the public engagement, which we put it out there if we could sell it or find a property manager. So the city was able to obtain the property. So we're looking for someone in the community or in the French area to take over as property manager.
Now, we attempted to do a development on that site, cooperation with these entities, and where is that? Whatever happened of that? Like, there was a RF, I believe, an EOI that was issued way back when, and nothing came of it.
You're talking the fire hall?
I'm talking I'm also talking the building that's now occupied by the old courthouse.
Yeah, that was sold and is a medical clinic now. There was an attempt to EOI the fire hall, question of interest. The proposed use, I believe, was a hostel that ultimately didn't come together. Then the public service attempted to market the entire site that was remaining, the buildings that just mentioned. And then ultimately that fell apart, and that led us to this point of trying to find a manager that can better represent the Francophone culture that exists at that site.
And if we had these entities that have purchased these properties surrounding the sculpture garden there and everything, why aren't we applying this cost to them in terms of having a property manager instead of us?
What do you mean?
Well, you were bringing a proposed evaluation to have property management. Whose expense would be the property management?
The idea is that the building manager will either operate at profit or cost neutral, ideally, to run that site, all the buildings and sculpture garden with the existing tenants. So, I mean, that's been the ongoing issue with the property is that we need to find ways to program the fire hall, which has been vacant for many years now.
Still vacant.
Yeah, still vacant. Some of the tenants have moved out of old city hall. So ideally, a property manager comes in. You know, there's been talk of putting housing on site or having more community accessibility to the building and more tenants in there. So ideally, yeah, we want a comprehensive building plan put together by the manager who can operate at least a cost neutral.
The idea is they would earn what they would eat, what they earn.
Essentially, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'll move that.
Motion by Council Wyatt, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? And then also carried.
Good luck on that one.
And
Thank you.
number 8, which is land exchange of lots and closed sections of right of ways along the Medina Avenue, V Boulevard, Formby Ave to southeast lands or
So moved.
moved by Councilor Wyatt.
This is in the, just for clarification, this is in the Wrigley West area? Yeah. Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. So I go public service recommendation. Item number 9, proposed license agreement between Winnipeg School Division number 1 and the city of Winnipeg at 2286 Eastern Boulevard.
So moved.
Point Douglas, Ward, moved by Councilor Wyatt, Winnipeg Public Service recommendation. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Item number 10, quarterly verbal reports on downtown development. This actually, I was going to ask, a little bit originating from what and what do we need to be continuing to report quarterly on this?
It's totally at the will of the committee. It was originally after center plan was adopted.
Yeah.
We were asked to report back quarterly. I have a short verbal report for you if you want, but
Oh, just been informed that this is the last quarterly report, so maybe a good one.
all right, this is a great one. It's lovely to end on this high note. Because this summer saw the launch of Winnipeg's first pedestrian scramble at King and Bannatyne. And if anyone isn't familiar, this allows simultaneous crossings by pedestrians in all directions while the vehicles are stopped. Then when the vehicles are going, they still go as normal and along the traffic flow. As of June 27, for the first time in 46 years, Portage and Main is open to pedestrians at grade, as you well know. With increased pedestrian movement across the major intersection, we are expecting this to bring new life to the area businesses and to
As already.
the street itself. Yes. The complete overhaul of our bus route that goes along with that and our network system was implemented on June 29. We as a city are adjusting and there may be growing pains, but there will be huge benefits from a system that is simpler and more efficient. I was able to get to City Hall on the bus this morning in 20 minutes less than I usually do because I usually have to walk quite a ways. The transit changes, of course, have enabled Graham Avenue's transformation officially launched on June 23rd at an event attended by the mayor, CenterVenture, the Downtown Biz, and many other partner organizations. You'll recall that council funded a pilot project to create a space along Graham for people in the center of our downtown business district. This pilot has been made possible through the work of partners and committee members who have put energy and creativity into Graham Avenue these past 6 months. One small example is the street furniture designed by the local architecture firm NA Architecture and built through a partnership with Tech High School. The decorative inlays in aluminum were provided by Manitoba Métis Federation, national government of the Red River Métis, who will be adding to this space and creating bigger installations later this month. Another example is Cool Streets Winnipeg, who have been painting the street courtesy of a grant from Bloomberg Philanthropies Asphalt Art Initiative. Storefront Manitoba is bringing Cool Gardens to Graham with 3 brand new installations that are underway as we speak. And we hope you all come out to the launch party on July 5th, which is tomorrow, being put on in partnership with the Downtown Biz. There will be art, music, refreshments. The Downtown Biz is also contributing decorative temporary lighting installations along Graham Avenue. It is not one big change that is making the difference. It's the sum of all these small incremental changes, increased services, nicer places to walk and cycle, that is making downtown easier to navigate, and that will make a huge impact on downtown and create a place where people want to live together and to do business. So on that note, the new residential development has continued since our last quarterly report to you. 2 new residential development applications were approved as part of the rail side at the Forks project for a combined total 136 new dwelling units there. 45 of those are at 32 Israel Asper Way and 91 at 72 Israel Asper Way. We've also approved over 100 dwelling units in other parts of downtown through several development applications, and Portage Place will soon join that list.
Thank you very much.
That we receive his information.
Well, just before we do that, I wanted to thank you for that presentation. Just in terms of Portage and Main, will you be coordinating with Public Works to ensure that the corner is plowed during the winter times? I know that we've had extensive conversation with Public Works and with the Downtown Biz to make sure that areas, especially by bus stops, but as well as these high visibility corners are plowed properly.
Yeah.
Not really B&B's jurisdiction, unfortunately. I would not, I'd ask that the director not comment on operations for snow clearing.
Public Works.
Good. Well, no, I'm just in terms of coordination.
Yeah, we try to stay out of
The director.
that sphere.
Okay.
The director might have mentioned this, I might have missed it, was, I understand that the Forks has just recently made a big decision. Would you speak to that a bit more?
There are 136 new dwelling units that were approved since our last quarterly report. So 45 of those dwelling units were at 32 Israel Asper Way and 91 at 72 Israel Asper Way. Also with me, pardon me, on Zoom is Curtis Kowalke, the principal planner for downtown, in case you would like to ask some questions as well.
I heard the Forks had just closed on 10 new sites on either side of York Avenue on Israel Asper Way, basically all the way former parcel 4, all the way down to the studio TV, whatever that television city TV. That old parking lots, that 10 new sites have been identified and awarded. Are we familiar with that?
Yeah, I'm not free to comment on that at this time.
Okay, I know the Forks, technically speaking, we have board of directors appointed by the city. We are 1/3 that corporation. Is there any way we can get a briefing from the Forks on this? Considering that 10 new multiple family sites being awarded is a big news development. And kind of surprised we haven't heard about it, but anyway. Maybe they're going to announce it and maybe I've just kind of kiboshed the announcement. I don't know. But anyway, so I'm just hearing what I'm hearing out in the industry right now. So is there any way that we could get some information from the Forks on this one?
I think we can always request information from the board there if they're willing to share it.
It's an exciting development. If that's the case, what I've heard from the folks in the industry who have bid and successfully secured, that this has only happened this week. And it's a big development. It's a huge development.
we can definitely reach out for more discussions.
Thank you.
Sure.
All
Can
right.
we put it on the next agenda? Have the folks come and speak to us about this in September. By then they'll be ready to announce it, I'm sure.
Let's see what we get from the communications.
Sure. Would it be possible to take a 5-minute break, please?
Let's close on item number 10 then.
Sure.
Receives information.
Sure.
Appreciate all of those updates along the way.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
And that's made by Councillor Wyatt. Opposed? Carried. Thanks. All right, we're about halfway through our agenda. We'll allow for a break here and we will reconvene our property planning development shortly.
Very good, sir.
Welcome back to the Standing Policy Committee on Property Development. We are on item number 11, which is Center Plan 2050 actions.
Chairperson, I know there's a delay being requested here, but
Yes.
I'm supportive of the delay, but if there's a way we can get the new CEO to come and speak to us at the next meeting, that'd be lovely. You know, we can move the 180 days, but have just an item to placed on the next agenda maybe or something, to send our venture plans and just have her come forward in September. I guess that would be a new business item to add.
Mr. Beach.
As we do meet and communicate often with the new CEO, we could maybe suggest if she's available to appear as a delegation.
Okay.
That's the idea.
The item on the agenda, so
A delegation as per this item on the agenda.
Sure. We can always move the delay again after September for more time.
Delegation can only be on matters that are on the agenda. So if this item, if the committee moves the extension of time, this item will come back in 180 days.
So I would move that the item be moved to September's meeting for her to, well, then we can always move it to another, whatever date difference it is between that and how much time she gained.
Is there an option to have the individual present a verbal update quarterly or so that or would it still be considered new business?
I don't want to do that. I just want to see her once come. Yeah.
Can I bring your attention to one thing? So on winnipegmetroregion.ca, last week they did post a quite extensive blog there or notice on their website about resetting regional planning. And so, sorry, we're talking about Center Plan 2050. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I'll move layover till September and then it gives her a chance to speak and then we can lay it over again based on the time that the administration needs.
So this one is a recommendation to council. So the request to lay the matter over.
I would prefer this not go to council. I think we should just deal with the matter here today. It's 180 day.
Well, then what I'll do, Mr. Chairperson, I'll move this layover, then add a new item to business for the next meeting. If she comes to speak. That may be clear, whatever. Just if we have to put something on the agenda for her to come and speak, we can maybe just call Center Venture, an update from our Center Venture CEO.
So the clerk just informed me that regardless, this is going to go to council. As an essential time, so council will go to the section on.
Whether, yeah, it has
If
to
we were
go.
gonna lay over, then council will vote on the layover. Is that what I'm understanding?
The report is due back to council. So this request has to go up to council. So if this committee wants to recommend that it be laid over, that would still go up to council.
Yeah.
So then the layover, I apologize.
No, it's all right.
We'll lay over, it'll come up, we'll then hopefully approve the layover and that'll give the CEO an opportunity to come to delegation if they fall, correct?
If they wish.
If they wish. Okay. Councillor
And that's the
Wyatt,
September meeting?
yeah, moves to lay the matter over.
And the invitation be extended to the CEO.
That's something that public
CEO
schools
of
would
Center
do
Venture.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Call the question.
We'll call the question on that. All in favor?
Aye.
Local area planning initiative, unfunded, but it's budget discussion.
Looks like,
Where's the
30
list?
days.
30-day extension.
It'll be in the report.
Because I know, we had, as a committee, have mandated this list come forward every February originally. That was a motion put forward by when Gordon Steves was chair of the committee. Do we still have that target date every February for the list of local area plan initiatives there?
Well, within this report, Councillor, James Beach, Manager, Urban Planning. Within this report, Councillor, we do have the appendix with the list of all the local area plans, the initiatives. It lines up with Complete Communities Direction Strategy. It also has a list of all the plans that are in queue. We used to target for the end of the year, but with all the work we had going on this last end of the year, it got pushed into the spring. So this report will be coming in the next 30 days, which is the next meeting, and it will have a list.
Okay, because I'm curious to know what it's looking like, because it's really, I think it's a big issue that we never properly fund these local planning area initiatives, which we then know is the challenge with regards to providing housing initiatives. You got to kind of fund one to get the other type of thing. So anyway, I hope is there any estimate that would be given tied to it? I know we haven't done that in the past, but that, you know, in the event we were to fund these initiatives, is there going to be a dollar value attached to any of them so that that could be considered as part of budget discussions by EPC?
Sorry.
It does say budget discussion within the report, so I believe there are some high level
numbers. Okay.
And if you look at the January 13, 2025 SPC PD item 8, Appendix C, there are cost estimates in there right now.
Okay.
Of course,
It'd
that
be
was,
updated type of thing. Okay.
yes.
Gotcha. All right. And is there a priority listing in terms of the ones that okay. All right. So moved. Thank you.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Say by default.
I'll move to
You
want to move this?
If I could just have somebody take the chair.
Sure, I'll take the chair.
Thank you very much, Council Wyatt. So this is honorary street naming, designating Oakdale Drive as William Grant and Coy as Lincoln Scarway. Wayne was a friend of mine. I appreciate Councillor Klein bringing this to fruition with the community stakeholders back in 2018, I believe it was, 2019 now. And I would like to see this continue for a period of 10 years. Wayne was recently inducted into the Manitoba Hockey Hall of Fame builder category in 2020. Played a large role in the Charleswood Hawks history over 24 years, winning an impressive 12 NMJHL championships, and a huge part of the community that we lost far too early. So to see that at 10 years more would be quite appropriate.
I heard the motion. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Chair, back to you.
Item number 14 is extension time.
Yeah, we moved the extension of time at community committee. I'm happy to move it here. I just want to add that I've had a chance to have discussions with this opponent. There's a lot of frustration, not with the planning department, more with water and waste. There's some real serious issues here they're finding this is a site, Mr. Chairperson, has major densities that have been proposed and passed by council. This site is owned by the DeFair family, who is committed to doing a major development on this land for some time now. Community committee passed this some time ago. They have found it very challenging to get this going. Anything that the planning department can do to assist with water and waste and these issues, I know they would appreciate it greatly, because they are close to walking away from this project. And this is a major project. These are literally towers that would be going up on the site. adding to the city's tax assessment rolls in a major way. I know from talking to them, they're very concerned right now. And this is not their main business, right? Their main business is building and developing and selling furniture and doing that around the world. It's one of the few major corporations that we have headquartered in Winnipeg still. And I would hate to see us lose this project considering of what we approved here is very significant, and we're very close to losing it, in my opinion, from what I've heard. Is there anything that the department can do? I just say that informally. If there's some sort of way to follow up, there is a contact there we have. I can forward it. Diane, who works directly with Peter Tillman, and that they would definitely appreciate that. I know. So.
Yes, Councillor, we can definitely follow up and assist where we can.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thank you.
That's an extension moved by Councillor Wyatt.
Yeah.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed, and that's carried. Move on to item number 15, which is also an extension. That's the southeast corner of Molson Street.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Wyatt. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and that's also carried. Item number 16, this looks like a community recommendation with some amendments here. Public service, please speak to this item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, this application was a subdivision rezoning, went through EKT Community Committee. The committee put a condition on. We were supportive of the subdivision rezoning. It was for 2 single-family lots, an existing lot that fronted both on Bonner to the north and John Huda to the south. It was split zone with R1L, single-family large, and residential RR5, rural residential 5 acres. The committee put a condition on that we wanted to raise to your attention, requiring a zoning agreement and limiting the 2 lots to 1 dwelling unit each maximum. With all the changes that we recently made in the zoning bylaw, Housing Accelerator Fund, the lack of housing in the city, this is a condition that we wouldn't have recommended. Just bringing to your attention.
So this is a subdivision, and these are the final few lots in the subdivision?
There's a few properties along this area that weren't redeveloped with some of the earlier subdivisions that created John Hyuda Road and created some single-family lots. These were some leftover remnant parcels where somebody was living on a larger lot and they didn't participate in the earlier subdivisions.
I'm kind of reluctant to change Councilor Bawadi's recommendations. I just, I don't know. I think the issue kind of was a challenge with this property and the infill and the nature of it. And I think he was trying to solve that problem so that it would kind of be brought online, developed. So I don't want to step out of line with what his initiative was there. I hear what the public service is saying, but I guess I think he's trying to make sure that that it works, basically.
Yeah, there was opposition that appeared at the community committee that were concerned about additional units on these 2 single-family lots. However, with the zoning changes that were passed by council on June 26th of this year, the rest of the block now has those rights for additional lots.
Yes.
And then to single out this one because they came forward with a subdivision,
right?
Feels somewhat onerous.
Okay.
Well, also concerns us that we might be not in compliance with the federal agreement.
So in a situation like that, would the proponent be able to withdraw their application, reapply based on the rules of June 26?
They could, but they would be subject to the community committee conditions again if community committee put on, and it's quite an expensive process and time consuming. There is an appeal process to the municipal board, I guess, on this rezoning. that the applicant could go through, but again, that's additional time.
So this is a subdivision rezone for 750. And what?
Public Services recommendation is to support it.
So on this, the 750 Bonner lot, what would we see being developed there?
Well, on the 750 Bonner lot, because Bonner is chip seal road with ditches, it would only be allowed a duplex under the new rules. So,
it's not fully it's not considered fully
it's
service.
considered a full range of municipal
So
services.
this wouldn't be an opportunity for
I can't get it to my
family or family on this?
No, not based on the rules with the full range of services. However, the lot, the new lot created fronting on John Huda.
Okay.
That is a curb and gutter roadway.
Oh, because it continues through.
Yes, yes. So one lot is gonna front to the south on John Huda and one lot is gonna front onto Bonner.
So there's still just gonna be 2 lots.
Yes, 2 single family lots, 77 feet
So
wide.
the trigger for the subdivision rezoning is because it's one giant block, as I see there.
Correct.
Okay, well, we see the committee recommendation for us for public services. Anybody?
Yeah, I'll move this. I'll move the public service recommendation to approve.
Sorry.
And again, it's consistent with the councilor's
Reverting back to the public service.
recommendation, based on this is what the councilor is interested in as well.
So the community recommendation.
Yes.
So no amendment, you're just looking to move the committee's recommendation.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
I just want to say, like, I mean, we're gonna have these things coming forward all the time, which are gonna be somewhat different than the federal government's requirement. I mean, they have to realize that we just rezone the entire city for them. And we're gonna have one-offs where we're gonna deal with challenging situations where full level municipal services aren't there, and we have to. I mean, if we have to go to the federal minister on every one of these, you know, we're gonna have outside outliers that we're gonna have to deal with, and I just, I mean, it's not a question of them losing anything here of substance. We're still doing density, right? We're still building something.
So another point I just want to add before we call the question off, Councilor Chambers mentioned here. This would be the case in every subdivision zone, correct? It would be, this is not an infill as per the vote that took place on as of right.
No.
So to be clear, because it's now, the property that has the full range of municipal services is currently zoned RR5. And that was not the R1, R2, and RMFS that we just allow through the infill. So that portion of it is not as much of a concern to us. However, the other portion, which is R1L on the chip seal lane, it would technically be allowed to do a duplex per the new infill housing zoning update. So that's the portion that, because they're only allowing 1 dwelling instead of 2, is not in line with what was just passed. On the other hand, the federal government was most concerned with the 4 dwellings as of right. So you could make that argument as well. So those are the things before you now.
Okay, unless there's any other comments, call the question, all in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Moving forward, we have item number 17, which is the subdivision rezoning Taylor Avenue, south between Keniston Boulevard and Portsmouth Boulevard. In my neck of the woods, this is exciting for the old Capillon Barracks, the Naue Ogina lands now. This is Canada Lands Corporation in their first residential development. We heard from several of the area residents. admittedly upset with what they felt was a change of plans last minute. The applicant and the public service were quite clear in I don't know how to explain this to what you can see it on the maps, but several of the properties on the western boundary here remaining as single unit, which are commonly known as single family. And then there being a portion to the southwest corner, which abuts the CN rail. And for folks that know themselves better with where that is, it's the Seasons Tuxedo, the rear of the mall there. I think at the time I made some friendly amendments to address some of the concerns, and I'll bring them up here with the public service now. First, behind the single, I'll use single family term, just for clarity purposes, on the western boundary, backing on to the city easement, is that the proper word?
Public reserve.
Sorry, public reserve, I've screwed that up several times. Public reserve, which is 30 feet in width, that backs onto Park Place East. Can we just clarify exactly what the amendment was there and what it would include when it comes to a visual end to the CLC property and the city public reserve?
Yeah, the current wording, what was added was clause 23C.
Okay.
That I'm just going to paraphrase here.
Sure.
That developers shall install bollards or other permanent physical feature to delineate the separation and discourage, I guess, encroachment onto the public reserve. So essentially, any type of bollard, fence, chain link, wood, whatever, but all to the satisfaction of the director of water and waste.
Water and waste, okay. Because water and waste manages this public reserve currently.
There is a feeder main, I believe, that runs along there. So there'd be concerns about what is installed on the site and how that could affect access or operations.
So at the public hearing, we heard from the neighbors there talking about a physical fence. This would not eliminate that possibility.
No, the preference is likely going to be bollards, but ultimately that'll be the decision by the director of water and waste, what's acceptable to put on that site.
Okay. So some further consideration of the underground structure once things get going.
Yeah, snow storage as well.
Right.
Access, yes.
Okay, because there will be a lane behind the homes, as was described to the committee, that is going to be 20 feet, I believe, and then another 22 feet, I believe, was for a garage structure, and then up to 25 feet for rear. So it does give quite a buffer, but the area residents made it quite clear that their preference would be to have some sort of, we'll call it opaque fencing of some sort, and this will not eliminate that possibility.
Correct.
Okay. And then just my other question for clarification, I put the amendment in on what type of structure could be built on the southwest portion, which is, I believe, zoned differently from the western front.
Yes, that's correct, Counselor. You had the condition to amend the PDO.
Okay.
That notwithstanding other provisions of this bylaw in the PDO2 Nawe Odina medium density residential area where the immediately abutting property is zoned R1L or R2, which is single family large or duplex. Multifamily residential uses shall be limited to the following types. I, townhouse, 2I, stacked townhouse, 3I, cluster townhouse.
And then during the public hearing, it was made clear to the committee that that decision of what type of build would take place was once they entered into an agreement with a actual builder, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So the residents at the public hearing expressed their concern around being, I guess, singled out to be different from the rest of the western boundary, and they were leaning towards wanting to have the townhouse single unit built that is still an option as it stands, as a townhouse, stacked townhouse, or
Yeah, typically townhouses are ground oriented
yes,
residential units with a shared wall.
okay.
And there could be any number of configurations.
I just want to make sure that the options are still there so that although we're looking to build this out, I think it's going to be great for the community, is that we're being respectful of the adjacent property owners. So, okay. I don't have any of this at this point in time.
Just for clarification, and I'm looking at it on Google Maps here. So where the construction is, so I see the rail line and I see is that a road?
That's an easement.
An easement, okay.
Public reserve.
Yeah, public reserve.
That will not be, yes, we're gonna put that on somebody's forehead here. That is not going to be developed potentially ever because of the infrastructure that's underneath it.
Okay, all right. I just wanted a clarification. Thank you.
Okay, I am happy to hand the chair to Councilor Chambers and move item number 17. That's recommended by the committee of the Assembly.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Aye. Take the chair back.
The chair, I appreciate that, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Number 18, approval of the proposed subdivision and servicing agreement for land located at 630 Gibraltar Street. It's community recommendation coming out of St. Boniface. Mover.
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Chambers. Also in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, that is carried. All right, so we have the item that we suspended the rules to hear from the delegation on. I would prefer to hear something from public service because I'm not quite clear on what we're here this morning. Oh, yes, right. Thank you very much. Clerk's just reminding me that there was a offer of submission. Would somebody like to suspend the rules for that? Okay. I consider that circulated.
Yes, it was circulated.
A hard copy, I can't get into my screen here.
I can print it. I just need to
Sure.
brief recess to grab the materials.
Great. We will take a brief recess. Can we hold in position here or do we want to go offline?
Thank you.
It should just be a couple minutes.
Okay.
Just to have to print.
We would have to go.
All right, welcome back to the standing policy committee on property development.
I don't trust.
I'll just call the questions, the suspension of the rules to accept the end of the submission hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We'll get a brief overview here from the public service, please, and thank you.
Sure. Per the zoning and services agreement for 307 through 311 Grassy, which is DASZ 31-2021, the earlier assessment of the situation may not fully align with the wording on the agreement, and that is the counselor's assessment. The zoning agreement does stipulate that the vehicle access and egress be only to and from Grassy Boulevard. However, the servicing agreement contains the following, which is item number 11, construction traffic. Point A says the developer shall ensure that construction traffic uses access routes determined by the Director of Public Works. This opens the possibility of alternative access during the period of construction if approved by Public Works. So we would suggest that the developer is not in breach of the zoning agreement or the bylaw, and that this matter falls under the servicing agreement, and Public Works should determine if there has been a breach. And in any event, there is no grounds to decline to hold a hearing on a different application, and the SPA should proceed.
Okay.
I agree. I would say this, if there's a way, I realize we're not amending an agreement here, and I don't want to suggest we should. But I would just simply request that what has been submitted to us be put as information to the attachment item, and that would be just simply as information going forward for the public record to show that Public Works has been working diligently to try to address it, to give them credit. And not in any way we're amending an agreement, a development servicing agreement, but more just that for the record that we've attempted to address it, and I want to thank the developer. The only issue that I would add that to go forward to Public Works for consideration, maybe from this committee, is that, or informally to Public Works even, is that consideration be given to temporary barricades on Ham on the north side of their access there to ensure that construction vehicles are not coming from the north. Because what happens here is Ham Street is gravel. It would quickly run into a situation where we'd have to do dust control on Ham because the residents back on Orem will be upset if you have a lot of, for example, cement vehicles coming in to pour cement. This is a concrete. Right now, what you have here, Mr. Chairperson, is you have a massive hole in the ground for the underground parkade. They're putting in piles, so they got piles coming in. They're going to have a lot of concrete forms coming in to build this building. It's a fully concrete building, not to mention pouring concrete. I wouldn't want to see their construction vehicles in any way, shape, or form coming from the north on Ham to, which I think they may choose to do because Grassy is such a challenging road to get in and off of there. I just want to discourage that and give Public Works a suggestion in terms of putting in temporary blockades, which they would then have to sign at the other end of Ham to indicate that the road is temporarily blocked. And I guess the frustration I've had here is just simply, I hear what the department is saying, but I think it was very clear, the intent of community committee, that access for construction vehicles be only off of Grassy. I sat through 2 hearings on this matter when I was wearing a different hat. And this to me is in the spirit of what was achieved. Residents did not want any construction vehicles coming off of Jacques or Orem, which was what was happening and what drove what we're dealing with here today. The only other issue I cite is that the house on Orem Avenue, which is the first one on the north side of the informal walkway there that the developer has to upgrade as part of his development, that they be informed of this. That obligation should be on the developer to let them know that access will be coming in off of that. This is unfortunately some of the growing pains that we have in a community that is constantly developing and building, which consumes probably 60 to 70% of my time as the area councillor, managing requests for a new stop sign, requests for a traffic crossing, requests for a traffic light to be installed, the developer has paid for, but the Public Works Department is waiting to pull the trigger on. All these things consume my office on a daily basis, and it's managing growth, which sometimes I wonder why I even approve growth with the lack of support we often get, not from planning, from other departments who are supposed to be implementing these things. And it's quite frustrating at times, considering that we're actually adding to the tax rules of the city, Mr. Chairperson, and actually making it possible for the mayor and EPC to balance his budget. You're welcome. So that is my thoughts, and if I'm a little cheeky on it, I feel like I haven't had lunch yet, so that's what I can say. You're hangry? Hangry is the word. Yes. And
let's break it down here.
Sure.
We have traffic, are we talking traffic's coming off of Grassy?
Originally, the plan was, you see that approach way off to the side here on the right? There's one in the middle there. Well, they can't go there anymore because that goes, if you're looking at the map here. Okay. Yeah. There's an approach, there's an old approach that basically now if you're to drive on that approach in the middle, you basically go down into a 20-foot or 30-foot drop. The only access they have right now is coming off of Grassy which is the eastern access there, but it doesn't provide them an adequate amount of access to develop the site properly, because that access itself too is cut off from this deep pit that has been developed. Now the challenge is, well, how can they get access? Well, then it was looked at. I was open to the idea of using Ham as long as there's a restriction on Ham on the north side with barricades. So to ensure that the developer does not have vehicles coming either from the north or to the north using Ham, because Ham is not an improved road, it's a gravel road. It's a road that one day will be cut off when Chief Peguis Trail extends further to the east. And in the meantime, we're stuck with it, but I just want to see that, I'm hoping Public Works is open to having a temporary blockade. We close streets all the time. We've got dual road closed right now for construction. So this is, and it's not a major road. It's not something that will hamper the businesses on Ham, which are basically to the north, backing of that, access Ham. Right now, most of them access via Plessy Road, which is on
Cordite?
Yeah, that turns into Cordite then. Yeah, that's correct. That's right, Cordite Road.
I'm sure it's fair.
So they will still have access to their establishments via Plessy. And it will be a temporary convenience to them, but I mean, at the same time, I just want to make sure that the builder here does, because it seems that, construction vehicles, they could put up signage saying construction vehicles only this way, but I know what the construction, contractors are like, and they're gonna take, they'll take the less resistant path if they have to with traffic in that area, so. So I would send it on as information to Public Works, just as information, and tie this as information. This way, then it's not gonna be something that, information with the proviso that barricades be placed, temporary barricades, concrete barricades be placed, basically as I've designated here.
I think you understand this, but the public service can't impose any conditions related to development at this point. It's been approved. Those agreements are done. So I think what you're requesting is perhaps nothing for this committee itself. This is a ward council and a public works discussion to be had.
Yeah, I would just put it on here as information.
Okay.
And then add this temporary barricade that's listed for this. And then just informally, if it could be submitted towards the staff at Public Works who are dealing with this matter, then maybe it can be resolved that way. If that's the will.
There's nothing for PPD to do. I mean, we can forward a report that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I don't even have what you have there, but yeah, I mean, we can.
The submission should be part of the minutes.
Yeah, we can just forward the minutes to Public Works and FYI and let them decide what they're going to do.
I would just say temporary barricades, I guess submission as amended. So, yeah.
So you're looking to request temporary barricades at the north of the developments on Ham Road.
Yeah, basically where they, correct, yeah, they put it through the concrete barricade.
I'll work with the counselor. I said,
Okay.
So I'll submit this as information.
Yeah, essentially.
There.
Okay, so with respect to the East Kildonan and Transcona Community Committee's recommendation, I understand that the public service is going to have an offline conversation with Public Works. So are you looking to file the matter or?
Yeah, I'll move that to be filed with the submission attached for the minutes.
Okay.
As per minute. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Thank you.
Councillor Wyatt's moved to file the recommendation of the East Kildonan and Transcona Community Committee, understanding that there will be an offline conversation with respect to the matter and then attach the amended submission to the minutes.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're going to the event reports. Time limits on vacant buildings.
From Councilor Gilroy?
Yeah.
We have some multi discussion, what isn't current practice right now.
Sure. So Kelly Happy Chuck from PPD did send this item. We feel like it's a community services item. He did send that to a few folks at Community Services, hoping they would potentially come here and speak to this. And also asking Jared Hildebrand if he wanted to look at this from the Bloomberg Initiative perspective.
Could we potentially give public service more time on this to look at it?
I would support that with subject to this. I would like to see, because my memory, unfortunately, I was here at the time when the vacant and derelict building bylaw rolled out. And I'd like to know, I'd like to really know or understand the level of funding we had at that time within the department, because it was all enforced via this committee, nobody else. The vacant and derelict buildings were a initiative which was a property driven initiative. And I know that the level of staffing and everything has changed, but I think it would give us a very clear picture, I think, in terms of the challenge of enforcing our existing vacant derelict building bylaw. If we were to have kind of a picture of what we spent then and staffing FTEs dedicated to enforcement then versus what we have today for the vacant and derelict building bylaw. And I know that's something that maybe is not something that will be a positive looking kind of, but I think it's until we have that, you know, I'm reluctant to start pushing for new taxes when we can't even enforce the existing bylaw we have.
So a few points on that, if I might. The VBBL administration was moved to community services somewhere between 2010 and 2012. And so, so the VBBL is currently fully administered and enforced through community services. We have asked for the transfer of the full VBBL to community services, that the entire process be transferred to them, and that's still our position at this time.
So why is this even before us then? Why is this even here?
This committee has jurisdiction over vacant buildings within the.
But clearly we haven't transferred every single.
Well, see, community services, collects those fees. It's certainly a joint committee that was stood up under Moira, but we are happy if you would like to have a separate meeting to talk through all of these interdepartmental intricacies and how they work. So the current VBBL coordinator, who is Corey Burgess, and the acting manager of community services bylaw enforcement, Martin Miller, certainly are engaged with us on a very frequent basis.
Could I make a suggestion that it's never probably been done before, but it would be, I don't know, I think the issue is big enough now to do something. I think it's getting worse, not better. I
would argue that the department has done quite a bit in the last.
Oh, I agree. It's just
improved the situation. Yeah.
I mean, the latest that I'm hearing is that basically buildings are being torched for the purpose of, let's say, people who are entrepreneurs to gain access to copper. And you burn a building down, industrial, residential, and then it burns the insulation off. You then go and you steal the copper and you sell it to entities that should not be purchasing it from them. And that this is funding elements in our community that the WPS deal with on a regular basis. And this is an issue that's kind of, it's speaking to the situation, I guess, in terms of the mental health addiction and this crisis in the city. But I would suggest, Mr. Chairperson, on this one, as an idea, I don't know, it would be, we should consider having a joint meeting of that standing committee and their staff and this standing committee and our staff, and have one just for the purpose of discussing this and to try to bring these issues to a head, one or the other.
So
because I think that committee is struggling as well.
In regards to Councillor Gilroy's motion, she is looking for time. Something without even going into very occupied second floor rent. So before it's here, I think that we should deal with this, whether or not.
But again, the enforcement mechanism is happening over there. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, if we had a joint meeting of the two committees, even informally, right? Not one that is necessarily for the public record, but to have an informal discussion of the two standing committees with staff available, we can maybe sort out some of these issues and come to some conclusions of things that can be potentially done or to inform the budget committee or what have you. Because I think the province is part of the challenge here too, right? We have a provincial government, we have challenges with regards to asbestos, and that has been a huge issue. unfortunately, with some of these properties. Getting them cleaned up. But it's really a massive play. The fire is underway and it's really actually affecting the entire well-being of these neighborhoods. And what I'm hearing also is that property owners are unable to secure insurance. They're not able to secure insurance for the rental dwellings, which means that they are walking away, which means the neighborhood goes further downhill.
But we can definitely request the CAO's office to put together something.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, anything else?
I think a great starting point would just be having this standing policy committee meet with our enforcement team first, and then we can bring you up to speed on all the joint efforts that are currently happening. And if you would like, that might be a faster avenue to the counselor's final
Yeah, we can goals ago and have it as well. But for this matter here today, the community committee recommendation of another Daniel board to be done. Motion here. I know we don't want to, you know.
Well, based on what Hazel just said, maybe that's what we do. But I would say, I don't know, I have a lot of sympathy for Council Gilroy, because if I were a councillor of a ward where houses are being burned down and not being cleaned up or sitting vacant and derelict, I'd be hitting the roof. And, you know, and I feel that we have not, you know, Councillor Santos, Councillor Edie, Councillor Gilroy are on the front line of this. And I don't think we've been doing enough to help them address the problem. And I'm very sympathetic to what she's saying. I'm questioning her solutions only because we have a lot of the tools now that we're really not effectively implementing because of funding of our existing bylaw enforcement operations.
Councillor Jenkins.
Yeah, this, does the department work with Neighborhoods Alive? I know that they do a lot of work in the community, more so for when there's tenants that need to be evicted, but do they do any work around, you know, vacant and derelict buildings as well?
I'm not sure the answer to that.
Okay, yeah.
But I will find it and get back with you.
Okay, because I mean, they are a resource in the community as well, in terms of some of these derelict buildings that, again, Councillor King tapped into, but recognizing what the issue here is for her as well.
Okay. So in regards to the time limits on vacant buildings, is there a mover here?
Yeah, I'll move this motion, the public services recommendation.
Committee recommendation.
Or is it an extension of time?
It's a recommendation from community committee.
Oh, okay.
Or report back.
Several report backs that.
Report back at the next meeting, remember what these boards said.
Okay, so just to be clear though.
Yeah,
There's several things that
yeah.
are out of P and D's jurisdiction.
Yeah, so there's the July 3rd recommendation by the community committee.
Okay.
My suggestion.
Okay, so the clerk just informed me that it is our jurisdiction, however, we do invite community services to come speak to this. So let's lay.
Was that formal or informal?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, they can come speak to it if we lay it over and then we get a better idea around the board on this.
I would invite members of the standing committee of community services to come and join and listen in. And then just on the topic, I mean, via this discussion here, and hopefully I'm sure Councilor Gilroy is listening. And that is that the best thing that she could do, if he wants to get things moving, is to do exactly what Cell Burrows did in North Point, Douglas. He established a community hotline, a phone number, got people phoning in on every kind of bylaw infraction you can imagine. And all these getting transferred to either bylaw enforcement or police activity where police needed to be stepping in. And that neighborhood got cleaned up within a year and a half, 2 years, because of Cell. He went above and beyond. He would stand up in front of gang members and tell them where to go. But I mean, he was actually the guy who cleaned up that neighborhood, and he did it through a hotline. You set up mini hotlines all over your neighborhood, Councilor Gill, right? And you start demanding that the service levels are there for the enforcement. That's exactly what Mr. Burrows did. Overnight, that neighborhood got cleaned up. Not overnight, but over about a year or so. And Sal just, he put himself at great risk at times doing it, but he was passionate. He was always before this committee and always before community services.
Just to remind the committee, Jonathan Hildebrand does lead the property committee. And
We can have him as well.
yeah, he may be a resource to rely on.
So, how about we look at that 30-day extension, which brings us in, or 30-day layover, which brings us into September. Perhaps by then, we could have members of community services, neighborhood livability.
I'll take the chair, you move the motion.
Okay, great, then, I'll have the chair to Councillor Chambers, I'll move that we have a 30-day layover of this matter and that the public service regarding, vacant buildings enforcement with neighborhood livability bylaw from community services. Attend the standing policy committee on property and development, and at the, can I add in there that invitation be extended to the standing policy committee members as Councillor Wyatt, or is that just something I can send?
It's in that.
Oh, send it. Okay, okay, so just to give the public service time from any and services to speak to this.
Thanks.
Any other-
Over 30 days.
Any other questions or comments?
You can also send it off to what I call the Lost Boys, you know, heard of Peter Pan and Never Never Land, you know, Lost Boys that all our fellow citizens who have kind of fallen off into the other unofficial economy out there, who they're not bad, they've just taken mistakes on mistakes, and that's where they are. Hopefully we get to one day have a system to help reach out to them to change their life when they're ready to do that. So,
All those in favor?
aye. Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Thank you.
Take the chair back.
No, even though it's 21, this is an extension of time, do I have a mover?
So moved.
Meeting committee recommendation being moved by Councillor Wyatt, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. We have subdivision and rezoning of 1321.
As amended,
25. Beaumont.
any issues with the amendments? No? Okay,
Public service have any comment on these concerns?
I'll move that.
No, we were supportive and supportive of
Public service support, great recommendation. Moved by Councillor Wyatt, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
To adjournment.
And prior, we have new business and we have in camera.
Do I have an item of new business as well, Mr. Chairman? That's not an in
Sorry,
camera.
here for the director here.
So just to answer the earlier question regarding, do we work with neighborhoods alive regarding VBBL? We do not, but not sure if the community services does.
Okay, clarify that offline then.
Thank you.
Yes.
Do we have an item of in camera?
We need to suspend the rules here in new business.
Okay, so moved.
Moved by Councillor Wyatt, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, that's carried. I have an item here. With
The public service like to detail the item or the waterways?
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah, this item of new business is in relation to our waterways branch that's currently under PPD. It was approved to be moved to the Water and Waste Department. It gives it better synergies with the whole engineering component of reviewing waterways permits. Currently, the waterways bylaw says the signing off on these permits is as the Director of Property Planning and Development and his or her delegate. So this proposed motion is to amend the waterways bylaw. We worked with legal on this to change Director of Planning, Property and Development to Director of Water and Waste. To be in alignment with this move of the branch to Water and Waste.
Is this the permit that's required if you're within so many meters of a waterway?
Yes.
Well, this is the permit that was created back in the day by Councilor Harry Lazarenko to fund the Riverbank Management Committee. And we're still doing it, and we don't have a Riverbank Management Committee.
We get about 100 permits a year on.
Yeah. It was a way to fund his the special committee that he had created back in the day, and we don't have the committee anymore, but we still have the tax. Just pointing out. But anyway, all right, I'll move the motion. It was people fought to be on that committee. It was a big deal. I even went on it one year. They all kind of laughed because we only had ditches at Transcona. We don't have any rivers, but I did serve on it once. But anyway.
Thank you, Councillor.
All right.
Motion? Yes, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I just wanted to see what Harry was up to.
Councillor Wyatt, you have.
I do. I just wanna, It's Happy Land Pool, which has now been, I understand, demolition.
Okay.
I wanted just to state for the record that discussions have been had with the provincial government that there is an interest potentially in, there's concern that we have decommissioned and demolishing the pool without the new facility being built, which is typically what our policy is, our unofficial policy has been in the past. We have $2.6 million set aside in the 5-year capital for the new aquatics park in St. Barnabas, but we don't have enough money. It's 10 million. And we don't know within the 5 years when that's going to happen. I've heard that if there is a interest, and I know intergovernmental affairs is the interest of the mayor, that if there is a reaching out to the province, there may be a scenario where they're prepared to come with half the operating cost, which is approximately $200,000 to run that pool every year. They may be prepared to come forward with half the money until such time as the new aquatics facility is constructed, which is hopefully within the next 5 years. I just want to put that out there, that discussions have been had with the province, and there is an interest. I think if there was somebody from the city reaching back in the other direction, I think the province would look positively on such a scenario to keep the pool open until such time as the new aquatics facility is built, which then it would be decommissioned. And province is very aware that this neighborhood is out of all the demographics in the city, the second poorest neighborhood in the city of Winnipeg, and therefore it's a concern to them. But I think there has to be a two-way there.
I could be wrong, but I don't think anything operating or that falls in their jurisdiction.
No, I'm just saying it for the record so that everybody hears this, including the mayor's office. It was a way of getting it on the agenda, just to make a point. And hopefully, for the sake of the kids in the neighborhood who don't have cottages or lakes to go to, that maybe we can do something. Everything I've done as a member of council has been around doing things for kids, make it safe, recreation programming to try to make sure that we keep them out of trouble. And the illicit drug task force, which we passed as a council back in 2019, specifically actually calls for us to keep swimming pools going to help keep kids healthy. And it's right in the task force that we signed off on and Mayor Bowman signed off of, I would add. So
it's a nice pool in Transcona, I think, about it.
And they want to model it on the Transcona Aquatics Park. And I think that's what is that called? Mimicry is the best. Yes, I know. I'm being a little bit of a.
Yes.
Yes, I am, and that's my job. But
Are you the camera?
Yes, is it in camera?
There is.
All right.
Yeah. Okay, can somebody move to go on camera?
Yeah, so moved.
Councilor Chambers, moves to go on camera, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, carried, we'll be back with adjournment. Welcome back to the Standing Policy Committee on Property Development for this July 4th, 2025. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Chambers, and before we call the question, thank you very much to the Deputy Mayor for joining us as the ex officio for Mayor Gillingham to help this committee move along. In our final regular meeting, we will be back for an appeals later in the month, mid-month. Call the question on the adjournment, on favor, aye, opposed, carried. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.